Hi, I'm Jerry Clune. I'm a farmer here in the Bringo district. Name of the property is New Marracara. My grandfather came here after the Second World War, about 1945-46. So I'd be the third generation on this property. We run mixed farming enterprise with sheep, cattle, mixed crops. I work in partnership with my brother Frank, about 3,500 hectares in size. Very undulating, so that's why the mixed enterprises are to make full use of every hectare we have. Because the farm's very undulating here, it doesn't lend itself to big broadacre cropping situations, so you sort of got to cherry pick where you do your cropping. And along with that, you sort of got a fence to the profile of the soils and also the topography as well. So we've sort of been moving that direction in the last few years, just to strategically fence places and the good arable land where you'll crop and the other stuff where you run your livestock. You've got to try and utilise as the hectares that you've got and in the best way you can. It can be prone to erosion if you overgraze the property. It can cause, and then if you get those early winter rains, it can be quite heavy in that, and you don't want all your topsoils washing off, going down the creeks and into the Indian Ocean and have nice red seas around Geraldton. So you've got to be careful of that. So we've done quite an extensive tree planting operation too, to try and control that and break the wind up a little bit and make it a little bit more protective for the livestock. Well, droughts are one thing you used to think happened to everybody else, but the first one I experienced as a young fellow was in 1969, and I was still going to school then, and coming home and seeing no feed and hungry cattle, hungry sheep, not a lot of extra hay and grain to sort of give them, and sort of it caught us unawares really, so it was a big learning curve. And I think ever since that day you sort of look at drought strategies and how you can best manage the situation, and experience teaches you a lot of things as you go along, and because of years of experience sort of show you if you're not prepared then it'll come back and bite you very badly. That's one of the things you learn after experiencing a few bad droughts. Like I said, 69 was pretty bad when I was a young bloke, and in the 70s I can remember coming back from Northern, from Muresk Ag College, and we were pretty nice and green down that, and you come back up here, it's just bare hills and rocks and everything. It was sort of quite a shock to the system. And then there were a few in the 80s and 90s. And then, of course, 06 and 07 were absolute shockers and widespread. So, and every time you do learn a little bit, you say, well, I'm not going to let that happen again. So you try your best to have plans and have strategies that are going to sort of solve those problems, and you sort of come out of it in a survival mode. You're surviving basically in droughts, but then you want to be able to move on from there, and you want to be able to pick up your production after those they occur. You know, if you haven't got decent rains by, like say June, then you know you're not going to crop as much, you're not going to expect much. Maybe you put a grazing crop in, because that's going to help you rather than a grain crop. And then and then your finishes as well. If you don't get a good finish August, September, or it's hot, it's not only the finish, it's the temperature, which seems to be a big impact now. It seems to come in a lot warmer earlier. So you need to be aware of all those types of things. So if your crop isn't, it's a fine balance. If it's not in early enough, or you've committed too much in dry seeding and it doesn't come to anything, then you could be in a problem. So we don't tend to dry seed too much of our program, probably 20% of it, I suppose, and then the rest you judge by the weather, because you don't want to be caught with bare paddocks that aren't coming up and then they come to nothing. Weather forecasting can be improved. That would be a great benefit to everybody, because you've got triggers and you know if it hasn't rained by certain days, you don't crop it so much. But it would be nice to know beforehand what those things are going to be. So with the livestock enterprise now, with technology, with scanning techniques and being readily available to farms, we preg scan both the cattle. We've done cattle for years, but also sheep now in a big way, and you measure the dries, the singles and the twins, and you break them up accordingly. So then you can offload your dry ewes first, and then feed to the requirements of your twins and your singles in different procedures if you can. Well, it's always a balance whether you want to retain some grain for the livestock, so you always do try and keep a big resource for grain, and also hay production. You grow oats and keep the hay. So typical droughts, when you're looking for grain and fodder, everyone else in the state is as well. So it's not a good thing. So you've got to be a little bit self-reliant if you can, and sort of have that buffer zone where you keep a year and a half, if possible, to keep that to maintain your stock. So, and if you haven't got enough, you've sort of got to offload your stock to balance that equation. So the ability to monitor your farm is probably a big benefit with the use of satellite technology, not only for soils and that, but also for water monitoring things. Things have come a long way in the last 10 or 15 years as far as that goes, and it's even coming better. So if we have better access to underground hydrological surveys and all that type of thing, I think access to good, decent water is critical to the whole operation. There wasn't always the ability to do things which we can now, and the ability to measure certain things were never there. So it was sort of, you sort of bumbled along a lot of the way. Now you have a lot more data and that to deal with. So, and the technique like aerial mapping and all that is far increased to what it used to be, and available as well. So I think you can sort of monitor your farm and your operations and how you do things a lot better now than what you could in previous years. So to utilise those tools, I think it's pretty important, yeah. And we're also at the moment just going through the learning phase with that Dr. Sat, that program which has come through, which you analyse your, well, I'm still learning about it, so I'm not an expert on it, but I'm had a couple of briefing introductions to it, and it's monitoring your farm, basically the top of your farm, the growth of your vegetation, and then you can look at it back 2 weeks ago, 2 years ago, 20 years ago probably. So it's sort of giving you a snapshot of what's happening on your farm there and now, and what has happened, and whether you might be overgrazing a particular thing. Well, I better whack them off and things. So it's new, and it's there'll be a few difficulties in learning, but yeah, I'm sort of a bit excited about it, actually. I reckon it's going to be really good. Yeah, so I'd sort of like to think that future generations working the land have the opportunity that it wasn't set back, or there's strategies there that have been implemented and can be used in the long-term future to keep the farm in a sustainable condition.